Hello, this is Teens Talk Politics, and we're back for another weekly news. Today, I'm joined by my co-host Sam again for another episode. This week, a lot of chaotic things have happened, from major hurricanes and also to Texas having a ban on abortion almost. Uh, January 6th committee have requested McCarthy to release phone records and going to telecommunication uh, softwares and big corporations to release those phone records, but we'll get into that in just a minute. I think the main big story that we're going to talk about and at least start with is about what's happened in Texas and the shambles that are really happening in the Supreme Court right now. And basically, the rundown for this
Mm-hmm.
is
Yep.
Texas has made this really ridiculous bill that you're allowed to sue someone that's any contact, whether they drove the woman to the hospital, whether you are the woman, whether you're the doctor um, making the procedure to have a successful abortion. And it just really is weird. It's a very weird law that they put in place that was signed by the governor. And just to say, this basically what it is you're not allowed to have an abortion after 6 weeks of you being pregnant, and many women do not know if they're pregnant 6 weeks in advance. So this is why this law just doesn't make sense. This is the
Mm-hmm.
most strict abortion law we've ever seen. Yes, there are some states that don't have a limit, and some states that have limits, but just aren't as tough as Texas is.
Yep.
And that's why this just doesn't make sense. You can't have a law that prevents you from having an abortion when you don't even know if you're going to have a kid or not. And then you're allowed to sue anybody involved, whether or not, like I said, if you drive someone to the hospital, you could get sued if it's involved with an abortion. That just doesn't make sense. And this could be by anybody, and it could be like your private citizen.
Mm-hmm.
This thing just doesn't make sense, and the fact that they have put it on millions and millions of people in Texas, the second most populated state in the country, I think is very scary. And Florida has said that they were planning to do a replicate of this bill and do
Mm-hmm.
it in their own state, which Florida I think is what, the third largest populated. So these are not like small states that it's only affecting a couple thousand. These are millions and millions of people.
Yeah, and as you were saying, it's just completely absurd when you think about it. Look, so a woman needs to get an abortion because the odds are she'll die if she can't, right? Like, and this is whatever. So you have to take this woman to the hospital to get an abortion immediately, or as we can say, or else she'll die. Now, you're just trying to save a person's life, whether that be a baby's or a woman's. And so you take them to the hospital, and regardless of what goes on there, you're still gonna get you still have the capabilities to get sued by anyone in Texas, literally just because you tried to save someone's life, and that's just absurd. I mean, obviously, not all abortions are life saving or life threatening, but it's just absurd either way. And as you were saying, 6 weeks, that's just not that's just as you're saying, most women, almost all women, don't know they're pregnant within 6 weeks. Um, and yeah, it's just an extremely stupid. Like, why would people think to come up with this? And yeah, it's just so many people are getting affected. This could like endanger the lives of tons of women and could make anyone with a decent like soul be a victim of just trying to help someone out. It's what these lawmakers are doing is irrational and just it's a lot of frustration that yeah, like yeah.
Yeah. And first of all, you said life threatening, and most of the time that's not the case.
Yeah,
It's because
mhm.
they don't want to keep the child.
Yeah,
It doesn't. It's mainly because of that. It's not
it's
life threatening to
rarely
the.
life threatening. I'm aware.
Well, the fact that you brought that up was interesting, but
I
for the
mm.
child, if I don't really think, unless it's only a few weeks up until you're expected to deliver the baby, the fact that the argument you're killing a child, I just don't think it exists
Mhm.
really. you don't have a character when you're just in your parent still, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can still make a moral argument. Well, if they're about to be delivered to the world, don't kill them, and that makes sense. And that's why that you probably should have a limit on it.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty light limit. I don't think you need to have one that's 6 weeks where you don't have any time in advance.
Yeah. Like, you're
And I
probably
just
still
don't think
sorting
that
out a
makes
lot of
sense.
family stuff right there. Like, it's, like, literally,
Right.
it's way too close.
And I think the fact that the Supreme Court is completely split because of what the former President Trump has put on the Supreme Court with his 3 justices that he's appointed, I think that really makes a lot of people angry. Someone that served 4 years, just one term as president, nominated 3 justices that were flown through the Senate in no time. Amy Coney Barrett, let's just say a hypothetical. If she had not been nominated only a few weeks before the 2020 election, kind of what Mitch McConnell did with Merrick Garland back in 2016, then we would, President Biden would have appointed someone in their place that would probably have supported the abortion,
Mm-hmm.
supported abortion, and I can guarantee you that the Supreme Court would have knocked down this law in Texas, and there wouldn't be a split in the Supreme Court because the Chief Justice, John Roberts, a very conservative person, is now looking like a moderate, supporting abortion and being against all the extreme Trump and Clarence Thompson, I think is his name, those 5, and there's one more I'm forgetting, those 5 justices that are supporting keeping this law in place in Texas and not striking it down, which has happened in the past. And there's only 4 that were appointed by and if Donald Trump had not appointed Coney Barrett, abortion would have been the law in Texas would have been struck down, and abortion would still exist in Texas, because at that point Joe Biden, like I said, would have nominated someone and would have supported it.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have had abortion with 5-4, with still Trump appointing 2 justices, which is still astonishing. Just 2 alone, that someone that's only served for 4 years can nominate 2 people, let alone what actually happened with the 3 that he appointed.
Mm-hmm.
And then abortion would be back and up and running. But the fact that we're not allowed to have the Chief Justice, because normally what happens is the Chief Justice is on the side that the Supreme Court ends up deciding on, and the fact that the Chief Justice is not on that side is alarming, and it doesn't happen very often. And I think that is the main reason why this is so troubling to people. And also the fact that women's rights are basically getting obliterated in Texas is another really, really alarming thing. And if Florida decides to go through with this, that's another state down that people aren't allowed to choose whether or not they're going to have kids or not, or they have to give them up to adoption or whatever they decide to do after they deliver the baby, if they're not allowed to have an abortion before the 6 weeks, because they don't know if they're pregnant before the 6 weeks, and it's very hard to know.
Well, yeah.
And I think this could go down a really bad hole that a lot of Republican states are now following in. And it's just, I wonder where this is going to lead.
To put it simply, just let women do what they want to do with their bodies. Like, in most cases, it's not because they wanted to have kids in the first place, and it's most cases, and as you were saying, the deadline is just way, way too, like, early for, like, anyone to have the deadline be any use, if not just completely obliterated. It's like, just let women do what they want with their bodies. Usually they don't have abortions just for fun. Usually they don't want kids. Like, it's not like, and I'm not going to get into details here, but like, you just let them do what they want. They don't want kids, then they don't have to have them. And do you think these people who don't want, and in most cases aren't ready to have kids, do you think they're going to take good care of them? Like, no. Like, let them, like, give it another go. Like, do it again when they want to have kids. Like, just let them do what they want with their bodies. It's not that hard. It's like, I don't think, like, these Republicans in these big states actually comprehend how much of a big deal this is, like, to millions of women's lives. Like, kids can be a huge financial issue. Like that's doubling the expenses of your house of just basic household needs. So it's like a huge, not doubling, but based on how many kids you have, it could be a severe increase in your household expenses. And so this could like actually do some severe damage to women's lives, and I don't think they really grasp the enormity of what they're doing, and just for their partisan beliefs or whatever.
Yeah, and another reason that this is known as the most strict abortion law is that it makes no exceptions regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Is including whether or not it's incest or rape.
Yep.
No exceptions. That is insane. That is actually insane. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that this is allowed to go through in the Supreme Court is like, okay, yeah, this law's fine. It's astonishing.
Yeah.
And I really think that the only way to solve this is going to be to pack the courts. That is not the right decision, I don't think, and there needs to be a better way out there. But as far as I'm aware, is there really another way? Because
No.
unless someone dies or retires on the Supreme Court, which looks like it's going to be unlikely,
Especially with all
it
these new
doesn't look like there's going to be
justices.
an opening. Right, you're going to need to pack the Supreme Court to add new justices to balance it out. When someone nominates 3 justices in 4 years, that's going to greatly unbalance the
Mm-hmm.
power in the judicial branch of government. And this is how these things happens. Crazy things like this, major extremists on the major conservative side are making this happen. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way to solve this is to pack the courts, which I don't
Yeah.
want to pack the courts. I don't think it's the best thing for democracy to
Fight
pack
fire
the
with
courts.
fire.
But at this point, there's really no other way. And I think that's going to be a major issue that we're going to have to debate. Politicians in Washington are going to have to debate whether or not that's going to be the way you're going to have to do it to actually solve this major issue. And I think we'll just have to see what's going forward because that's going to be a hard decision for people to make. Okay, on to our next segment. We're going to be talking about the upcoming 2022 elections, which is the midterms. And the reason we're going to be talking about this is because Trump just made another major announcement this week how he's going to be endorsing Sean Parnell, which is, I think he's an author, and he will be running for the 2022 Senate race. And the reason this is so important is because this is a major battleground. This is where Pat Toomey, the incumbent right now, is going to be retiring. His seat is a major battleground. It's a toss up right now, and if Democrats pick it up, it would be very good for them. And then if
Mm-hmm.
Republicans keep the seat, then that really gives them a better pathway to keep or to gaining a majority in the United States Senate, which Democrats obviously are trying to stop that. But I don't really
Yeah.
think Trump's going to have much of an effect. He lost the state in 2020. Does he think endorsing a candidate is going to help them win and get across the finish line? I don't think the answer is yes. He's endorsed
Yeah.
several other names too, and a lot of these, it makes sense that he endorsed it because it's a state he won. For example, Marco Rubio in Florida, he will probably win by a major margin in that state. Ted Budd in North Carolina, he also won that state. So I think his endorsement actually would help. But in the state like Pennsylvania, I just don't see that as helping. Right? Am I wrong to say that? I think that's just
Yeah, I mean, it's a lost cause, frankly. But
right. And what's another example? I saw it's in Virginia. It's for 2021. Glenn Youngkin, he endorsed him, and he's running for governor in 2021 from Virginia. Donald Trump lost Virginia by such a large margin. Does he actually think endorsing someone that's like him to run in the state like Virginia is going to help? Probably not. And I just don't see these endorsements going very far because
I doubt
he
it.
really wants to have this hold on the political world, and he wants to continue having this hold. Don't you agree with that? Because he likes
That's
having power in the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's very well said.
He wants to
But I
continue
think
being relevant.
there's a fine line between having power and pretending you have power. I think, and Trump's on the verge of pretending to have power, making these endorsements that are either obvious or unnecessary.
I actually
And
disagree
a
with
lost
that
cause.
though. I disagree with that because he still holds a lot of
Oh,
power,
I'm
though.
sure he still holds, but I'm sure he still holds a decent amount of power. But I'm wondering if in the future, whether this be near future or far future, he's gonna start transitioning into that. I'm gonna pretend I have power,
From
and we obviously don't know if he's still gonna be alive by then. But
from where the
time will
Republican
tell.
Party is right now, I don't think that's gonna happen. The only reason
I mean, I'm sure everybody will worship Trump, but I'm sure his effects will not be as a big of a deal.
among current politicians, his effect will not go away. Among U.S. citizens, I think we're actually going to be moving on from Trump. But I think the main
Oh,
Republican
that's
base
probably
that is
true.
just such strongly Trump, which is only like a third of the country, probably less,
That
that's going to
makes
stay with Trump.
a ton of sense. That's what I'm trying to say, but you put it so much better.
Because I think
Yeah.
Republicans, if they continue on this track, they're going to start losing elections. Because I don't think American people want to see the Capitol being sacked. I don't think the American people want him to be nominating 3 justices in 4 years. I don't think the American people want to be endorsing crazy people that are going to be supporting stuff that really he shouldn't be supporting. And I think the citizens, yes, we're kind of stupid in some ways because we have a very uneducated section of the country. However, I think we're smart enough to see
Mhm.
over this. I understand that we weren't smart enough in
Yep.
2016 and we elected him, and millions and millions of people weren't smart enough to see over that in 2020. However, I think over time, people will start understanding that, especially after what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. They'll be like, what is actually happening? And it's all because of Donald Trump. I think his effect will wear off among citizens. However, not among
Hmm.
his buddies in the Senate.
There's still gonna. I agree that there still will be a few, if not a lot, Trumpist Republicans, and for the other fraction of Republicans, I feel like that could be in danger to the party by splitting it.
The
The
party's
Republican
splitting.
Party.
I think that's obvious.
Yeah, that's
I
for certain,
think Mitch
and it's going to
McConnell.
be a question of who. It's going to be a question of who remains a Trumpist and who
I think.
doesn't, and can already start to see those little cracks breaking, um,
Well,
especially after the
well,
2020
I just
election.
think. I think people like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, they're gonna keep basically bowing down to Trump because they think that's how they're gonna win elections. States
That's
like
true.
Kentucky, I get that. States like South Carolina, I get that. Texas, you might have a problem after a while because you know how close that election was in 2018 when Trump endorsed him and all. This was the closest election in Texas since like the 19 something something back in like 1980, some Senate race. And the fact that this is happening in a state like Texas should alarm the GOP. But they're continuing to believe that the Trump train is the train how you're going to win elections. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I really do not think that's going to be the case. And yes, he's going to have a lot of relevance in the Republican Party. I just don't think they're going to be winning as many elections as they're going to expect to win, just because of that very reason. And I believe we're going to
Yep.
move on to our next point, and this is going to be talking about the January 6th committee, which we haven't updated our audience about that, but I'm assuming everyone watches the news nowadays. But
Nope.
this is going to be about how they're trying to recover phone records from Kevin McCarthy. And basically, what they're trying to do is there's
Hmm.
communications between Kevin McCarthy and other individuals that they want to get a hold of. The weird thing about this is that it really looks like there's something shady going down because Kevin McCarthy is threatening these communication companies. What did they call it? Co-communication or something like that. I don't have time to look, but he's threatening them that it's against the law to recover these phone records and give them to the January 6th committee. That's really sketchy looking.
Yeah.
If you're going to threat a company that they're not allowed
Yeah.
to give over your
Hmm.
records, yes, I mean, you could say privacy concerns, but if you don't have anything to hide, you shouldn't be
Yeah,
worried,
you could give an argument.
correct?
Yeah, that's very true. It's like do it willingly or find the Democrats to try. Do it willingly or find the Democrats to prove you wrong. The outcome's the same. The outcome's the same. You just delay your death or you face it head
Yeah.
on. Like, or you're being really sketch for some reason, and for no
And this
reason
is
really.
what is an article on CNN, and it's exactly saying McCarthy issued a statement warning that any telecommunication companies to comply with the committee's request would be breaking the law. So that just goes to back up
Mhm.
what I said before, how he's really pushing this, and I don't think that's looking good on him. If he doesn't have anything to hide, just let them show the phone records and give it to January 6th committee.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, man.
Unless he has something to hide, and then maybe it is a big deal. I think we'll just have to see, and it really concerns me that
Yep.
possibly the future Speaker of the House is hiding something like this, especially in a big event like this, like the January
Hmm.
6th attack, where like 7 people died. Right? I think that's just a major thing that we're going to be looking at.
Yep.
Because this video is already kind of long, we're going to move on to our last and final point, and this is going to be talking about Hurricane Ida that turned into Tropical Storm Ida when it started reaching towards the northeast. And this is going to be covering climate change as a whole. We obviously won't be able to get to everything because we only have a few more minutes. However, New York issued a state of emergency due to these flood flash warnings and actual real effects that happened. A lot of times you'll get the warning, but no flash flood comes. This case, many floods happened in upstate New
Hmm.
York, closer to the city, even down in New Jersey, parts of Connecticut, parts in
Hmm.
Pennsylvania. This has never happened before. New York has never had to issue a state of emergency because of a flash flood warning in its history. You know how insane that is? New York has been around since the beginning. It was part of the 13 colonies. It's never had to issue a
Yep.
warning like this. And people are still denying that climate change is a factor in this.
It's by the coast, people, and look what's happening now. And as you were saying, climate change, definitely a
Because
fraud.
the fact that this has happened,
Mm.
especially in a place like New York where they don't get much major storms, they get that's a lie, but they don't get hurricanes. Okay, the fact that they
And they
have
don't, and they
tropical
live by
storms. They
the
got one a
water.
week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm forgetting my timeline, but it was probably like 2 weeks ago. They got a big storm up in New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and then now they're getting the remnants of Hurricane Ida back in. They came up Louisiana, went up to Mississippi, Arkansas, uh, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, and then it made its way through West Virginia up in Pennsylvania to New York, and it rained really hard. This was 2 nights ago, I believe, from where we're recording now, and it was very scary to see. They have never seen as much rain that they got in a very, very long time. And the fact that flash flood has happened and has killed several people in these places where there technically wasn't even a hurricane because they were not prepared because climate change is happening at such a rapid pace. People are denying that climate change is existing. No one's doing anything about it because we can't pass major
Hmm.
legislation. I think people are going to have to do something about it. Because if nothing changes, this is going to continue to happen. We're not going to have time to upgrade all our infrastructure so we can be prepared in places that aren't usually hit by
Hmm.
major storms, like in states like New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Maybe not New Jersey, but at least New York and Pennsylvania. And I think nothing's going to happen because people like these Republicans in the Senate are blocking bills that are trying to help or be a defense against climate change to prevent stuff like this happening, and for it to go even more extreme where we have hurricanes on the regular, like it's a daily thing, and they're just denying that it exists, or it's not as
Yep.
big of a problem that everyone's saying, that almost every scientist is saying that it is a problem and that the greenhouse effect is a problem that needs to be addressed. And the fact that they just cannot muster to say,
Hmm.
okay, the people I support don't, or the people that are my main base, the main Republican voters that are electing me to Congress, don't believe in climate change. I'm not going to be a leader. I'm not going to stand up and say, okay, we're going to need to do something about it. That's alarming. And the fact our leaders are not saying that.
Yeah, all it takes is just a few influent. All it takes is just a few influential Republicans, and boom, a major, like a major global crisis is on its way to the solution. Like literally, it just takes a few cross partisan leading figures to step out and say, look, we all know this is a real thing. There's no point in hiding it.
I,
Our planet is under
I,
threat. Boom, you're
it's not
done.
that easy.
You're on. Now the entire United States is on a solution to. Literally.
It's not going to be that easy.
Actually.
Because, first of all, even if that did happen,
It's. And obviously nobody's gonna go by.
even
And
if there are like
obviously nobody's
5
gonna
main.
go kumbaya. Let's fix this.
Even if there was like
But
5
that's
leaders, let's
literally
say
all
John
you
Thune
need.
is like, yeah, Kevin McCarthy's like, okay, how about we do this? Mitch McConnell's like, yeah, how about we do this? And we get 2 other Republicans. Even if that happens, things are still not going to change because Republicans in the House and the Senate, mainly the House, they know that they get elected every 2 years, right? So they need to know that their supporters down in their districts they don't agree with climate change. And I don't think that anything that major leaders in Congress say are going to sway that opinion that these citizens have about climate change, and they'll be immediately primaried. I think Republicans understand that, and they know that they're not going to vote for this regardless of what happens, and that's why I don't think it's that easy.
And I obviously that's true, but I'm just saying I'm not saying it's
Well, that's
that
not
easy.
all we
I'm
have
just
to
saying
do,
that's
though.
all we need.
Because
to
even
do.
if that happens,
right?
Major Republicans in the House are still not going to vote for these legislation, depending on what comes out. Yes, the Green New Deal's out. However, that doesn't look like it's going to be passing anytime soon. However, if there's another way to tackle climate change that comes out, nothing's going to happen because these Republicans aren't A, believing in science, and B, standing up to their constituents back in their in their what's the word, congressional districts, to vote for this legislation.
Good job.
And
Good job, Andrew.
the fact
Good
that
job.
our leaders are not standing up is alarming. It's very alarming for such a large thing like climate change, when people are dying up in states that you should not expect for people to die from storms. Not snowstorms, regular storms from hurricanes up
Yep.
in New York City. That is ridiculous. And they're like, climate change does not exist. Look around you.
Mm-hmm.
Look around you.
Yep.
So I think this
Very
episode has been
well
going
said.
on long enough. We'll have a
It's been
Labor
very
Day
fiery.
special coming out on Monday. We'll also have a regular schedule on Tuesday. We'll also be doing the regular schedule on Friday, and then we'll have another 9/11 special on Saturday. So I guess we'll see you then. Hopefully, tune in. So we'll be doing a lot of podcasts in the next
Jam-packed
couple of days.
week.
So anyways, we'll see you then. Thank you for listening, and make sure to tune in on, what day is that going to be? Monday. Thank you for watching.